Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Allen. Our guest is Danian Brinkley. He is truly from the South and grew up in South Carolina. And he himself is a former Marine. His father was a disabled World War II veteran. He came up with a great idea, the Twilight Brigade. And we hear stories about the VA being good, being bad. They help, they don't help. Reaction to things like Agent Orange, and just being in a combat situation where, as Danian said, we're just not built to participate in war. But Danian has found a way to help those who have pass over gently. Would that be a good description, pass over gently?
I would say support. Everybody needs to know that their life matters. And a lot of times when you're in kind of pain and you're literally blaming your own government for killing you, Agent Orange, Desert Storm Syndrome, all these vaccines, all the things that we completely try to hide, the mercury-based vaccines, and all of these things that we hide and deny. But these things happen, and when you're lying there, you defended your country, and you know that they had to have known what they were doing, and that's a hard place for a vet to be. And we see these young kids coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they are not like a war that was like World War II. They find that these are business adventures. These are not saving the world, and this is not stemming the red tide, defeating the enemy. It's a business opportunity. And once they begin to realize that, like the guys at the end of the Vietnam War, they realize that they have taken on a mission that they thought was patriotic and heroic, and most of them will tell you that it is nothing like that. That's a hard place to put yourself when you've killed men, women, and children.
I can't imagine. I mean, and I agree with everything you're saying. We've talked about vaccines. When you hear about vaccines, well, you and I are the same age, or about.
Yeah.
And I remember getting the polio vaccine, and we've talked about this. I don't believe they had mercury in those vaccines at that time.
They didn't.
They did not.
Nope.
And the idea of the vaccines makes sense to me. But because of all the junk they put in it, a few years ago, my wife insisted that I go and get a flu vaccine, and I ended up walking out because I got the packet. I asked to see the packet, the flu vaccine packet, and on it is an FDA warning. It says, does not prevent the flu. So why am I putting this in my body? I asked the nurse. She had no answer for me. Anyway,
but it's very typical. When you start to look at, when you go into combat in the desert, there is so much. And the kind of vaccines, you're getting 8, 10, 12 vaccines. You're taking pills. Mercury is a toxic poison, but as a poison, it helps carry. And now this other point that since I live in quote-unquote death, I mean, I've been around thousands of people, and I get a chance to see their records and to ask questions. There is no question about it that we are structuring vaccines to, and I don't mean to sound conspiratorial, but I get a chance to read RAND reports. I get a chance to see the CDC reports. We're constructing in these vaccines treatable illnesses. But if you look at it, right now, there is 128 vaccines in the pipeline to be given starting at birth.
Scary stuff.
That part is insane. And I listened to what guys went through. Some guys took 28 shots before they went into Afghanistan or Iraq. 28.
Wow.
And then you get there, you're dehydrated. You have what's called hypervigilance because there was no rear echelon. There was no place to retreat back behind friendly lines. So you create hypervigilance, which becomes post-traumatic stress syndrome. and then rapid fire, which causes traumatic brain syndrome, and then the fact that you were there doing nothing. I've heard it all, Mark. I sit with guys in their 20s that's life is gone. Their life is completely ruined because of what they come home and know. When you're there, it's all about your buddies. When you get home, you realize that nobody cares. Like the guy told me, he said, we went to Ramada. You went to the shopping mall.
Right. Their lights are out. Would you say it right? Their lights are out.
The reality of reintegrating back into the world and the types of protocols that they use. You cannot drug someone to safety. And we live in a pharmaceutically psychological base. You know, we're chemicals. I think my greatest issue, Mark, is this. We accept pills. First we were Newtonian mechanics, then we became, at the advent of penicillin, we became chemical, and now we're into quantum, where science and spirituality meet.
And we're going to continue that when we talk in a couple of weeks to a month, okay? Danian Brinkley has been our guest. Listen, visit thetwilightbrigade.com, thetwilightbrigade.com. We got to take time out, and then Robert Clancy will be up next here on Late Night Health. Don't go away.
The show continues in a moment.